how do we want to lead from a place of care and empathy or compassion to know that like we'll figure out a win-win when we're in the office, but also it's like I want to be winning outside of the boardroom as well.
Yeah.
And so leadership doesn't just stay within your four business walls. It's how you lead in your communities as well. And I talk often about the ABCs of leadership. We don't need to overcomplicate this. It's authentic leaders, it's bold leaders, and it's curious leaders. I use tennis as my analogy. If you want to keep a conversation going or become a better conversationalist, you have to hit the tennis ball back and forth across the net. Sometimes you might hit it in the net, start over, try again.
Yeah, I love that. It's not making it so much about you. It's about them, and then it comes back. I like the humbled, and I like the fact that, kindness isn't weakness, with a very big example of how I show up online with the trolls versus people who are kind. Yeah. I am kind to the people who show me kindness and are respectful to me, but I am not afraid to block the people that I just have no time for it, and that is the strength that I have. Well, Milam, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here, as always. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Brand Me, but before we dive into that, I want to hear about your background, and I want to share a little bit of your journey with, the people listening. How did you go about negotiating multi-million-dollar deals in sports to becoming a leadership development coach and speaker?
Quite the change, huh?
Yeah, that is quite the change.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm so glad we can record here in Austin, my hometown, proud Longhorn, and be in person, because these interactions were few and far between just a few short years ago.
So true.
And that's part of what led me on this journey. I don't really know how far I want to rewind the clock, but I'll keep it somewhat recent, because okay. I can hear my wife in the back of my head saying like, land the plane, Milam.
Good advice.
Right? Always in life, just trying to bottom line things. I'll roll the clock back to 2016. I was living in New York City, happy there, like thriving career. And my manager at the time came to me, he was a French guy, and said, I want you to move to London.
It's crazy.
And I was like, hold the phone, London. I was like, they say when London's calling, you need to pick up. And I quite frankly did not want to go. I was scared, right? Like my comfort zone was big move. New York, I had great community there. And had he not encouraged me, I don't think I would have had the courage to go.
Fair.
And a little bit about his story. I mentioned he was French. He had worked for FC Barcelona. You might have heard of it.
Might have heard of it.
Yeah.
Maybe my husband's heard of it.
Right. Might have heard of a guy who played there a long time, named Leo Messi. And he'd worked for that club a long time, went to
very cool.
the club I was employed for in Italy. And I was like, if this guy can go from France to Spain to Italy, like I can do that too.
Yeah.
And so I moved overseas. I was living what felt a lot like Ted Lasso's life, being an outsider in another culture. And mind you, I wasn't coaching. I was responsible for bringing in revenue for the organization, front of shirt sponsor, our official beer. And I realized being in those boardrooms, negotiating those deals, especially cross-culturally, that human connection is ultimately what gets those deals done.
Yeah.
And that requires leaders who are take initiative, who actively listen, and who know how to find solutions. And so ultimately, doing that body of work, I realized I really like dealing with the leaders more than I like negotiating the contracts.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I can absolutely see that. I think human connection is so important just in any business that you're in, especially me with marketing. I always say, marketing isn't as much about the tactics as it is about human connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I'll go a little bit further on that just to say that the more deals we did, obviously, the more your confidence grows. But at the same time, also the more case studies you have, if you will, you realize how people are oriented and their postures of what's their why behind this. And I find that so fascinating, just the human psychology and operating from a place of like curiosity and care.
Yeah.
And so that's ultimately what led me on the journey I'm on today, which was founding my own business, Be Confident and Kind. We are a leadership development consultancy. And early days was a lot of fractional work in the world I came from, and it's evolved over time. And building that brand, you mentioned Brand Me, has been non-linear. And so I'm just grateful to all the people that I've interacted with to get me this far and continue to inform the direction of the business.
I love that. You mentioned Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen it, it's like a really great show about someone that comes over from a football program into English football.
That's right.
And he plays a really funny role and just really charismatic. So tell me a little bit about why you think that you are the Ted Lasso of your field.
Okay, clarification, right? Let's set the record straight for all the listeners. By no means am I as funny or charming or as clever as Ted Lasso.
I don't know.
The cake.
I think
he
you
takes
got
the
it.
cake. No, yeah. But I have been told by others, oh my gosh, you really are Ted Lasso, or you
Real
live
life
that.
Ted Lasso.
Yes, you live that life. So I was like, you know what? If they're gonna throw the label on, I choose to accept it. You know, we get thrown a lot of labels in life at different stages, and I was like, that one felt resonant.
It's good imagery. I like it.
Yeah, I need to work on my mustache. I can't quite get it there. But Ted is so much more than just a fictional character, and his leadership archetype really is one of a charismatic leader. You use that word. And I think that word gets misconstrued. And we think of charisma to manipulate when really the opposite of manipulation is influence. And that's what he does with his team. He guides them and motivates them and inspires them for the common good, for a shared purpose. Yeah. And I think that if more organizations had that, the future of work would be a much more appealing place to be. And we wouldn't feel so disconnected or disengaged with our employers.
That's a good point. I love that. So a lot of people chase career success, but a lot of it is about human connection as a real game changer. What moment in your career made you realize that leadership and connection matter most instead of just deals?
Sure. I would like to think you could have both, but at the same time, if push came to shove and you were left with doing a bunch of deals, but being an asshole or having no friends or having no relationships, because that's what I think business really is, to do additional deals, then what's the point, right? And so there were a lot of moments that led to that realization, but one in particular, as I was about to exit the club, we knew the team was for sale and it could change ownership hands. I was negotiating with two competing brands in the category of video games. And I won't say names, right? Because I'm not here to assassinate characters, but let's just say that a relationship I'd built over 4 or 5 years with one partner, not a sponsor, but truly a partner. We were trying to give them unprecedented access to players to make them look more realistic in the video game. Okay. They just decided, we don't want to work with you all anymore. Not because we were negligent, not because we were incompetent. These were my partners right after the deal had been handed off that were managing it. But really it was a numbers game, and they wanted to invest budget elsewhere with more, let's say, popular clubs or famous, higher fandom. And to me, that really rubbed me the wrong way, Nikki, because I was like, that's not in the spirit of partnership. Right. Partnerships grow over time. Yeah. And so we went to their competitor and said, we don't feel valued as a partner. Would you be open to having a dialogue around what it would look like for us to do something? And that resulted in so many other robust things that I don't think we would have ever realized for a partnership. For example, we had an esports team, so not just the football, meaning soccer players on the field, but the ones who played video games. Right. And the minute we got their buy-in, we thought, this is a no-brainer, let's do that deal. And so I say that because, the bottom line, relationships matter so much, and you can't retain business if you're not constantly working at the relationship.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. That's really interesting of a story. I love just those little things that make the rest of your career such a trajectory. The thing where you're looking and you're going, this isn't how I want to see a partnership. And it changes how you view the rest of, partnerships moving forward.
That's it. And to make sure we close the loop on the leadership piece, the individuals with whom I was working with, negotiating with on either side. And I always try to treat a negotiation as a win-win. Like what would a win for you look like? What would a win for us look like? It's been interesting to follow some of their leadership journeys because these individuals have gone on to do great things for other organizations. And then some I've lost touch with intentionally just because I'm not as invested in their career path. But I say that because oftentimes leadership is modeled for us, and that's not always for better. It can be for worse. And especially as we grow and evolve, and we're not just a working professional, but we're a working parent. I know you and I share that. How do we want to lead from a place of care and empathy or compassion to know that we'll figure out a win-win when we're in the office, but also it's like I want to be winning outside of the boardroom as well.
Yeah.
And so leadership doesn't just stay within your four business walls. It's how you lead in your communities as well.
Yeah, so often a lot of the best leadership advice that I get is from bad leaders, to be fair, is how I don't want to lead. So I always think that that's fascinating. Over my career, I've had some terrible, toxic leadership and managers, but it's taught me what I don't want to do moving forward. And I've had a mix of both. I've had really good leaders. I've had bad ones, but both have shaped me into the leader I want to be. And then, of course, becoming a parent shapes you even more for that.
Absolutely. And I can meet you in that space. I've had both as well. And by no means am I perfect. And I don't want anyone to ever say that I am. I have messed up as a leader, but I've learned.
Learn from it.
And a lot of people don't. They just repeat these vicious cycles. And that's where the toxicity in the workplace is unacceptable. And that's why people leave organizations. We think burnout is correlated to I'm overworked, and there's research that actually shows there's not a sense of belonging. They're not given agency by their leaders. They're not given autonomy. And so they say, I'm going to take that agency back and I'm going to go be autonomous elsewhere. Yeah. And that's ultimately what happened for me. I was in a fully remote role after the football club and realized if I'm not going to be given resources and budget to staff up, then I could just go be a hired gun, so to speak, or solo at it on my own and really build a dream business.
Yeah, there's so many times that you get stuck without budget, resources, time, that you're like, I could be doing so much more. And I hate being in a role where you feel so stagnant. Yeah. And you're just like, I'm not making a difference. I've been there, and it's tough. You want to go out on your own, and you're like, I could be doing something right now. Instead, I'm just not learning. Right.
Time is valuable.
Yes.
And especially as parents, I know you can relate. We were connecting, bonding over just the privilege it is to have some sort of support system, and how that should be really like celebrated and valued. And when you don't, it really puts your time in perspective of how you want to be utilizing it. And so being respectful of people's time is so important.
It's so true. And, I've been in both the roles where the leadership doesn't understand needing like flexibility with like childcare and things like that. And then good roles where I'm just like, hey, it's President's Day today. I don't have childcare. I'm going to be a little offline. And it's like, that's no big deal. We totally understand. And, just get your stuff done whenever.
That's right.
Love that.
And I am curious because you have such a huge following on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Working parents. We're both millennials. What is an interesting piece of content or perspective that you've come across around how employers or leaders, managers, I kind of use those terms interchangeably, even though I prefer leaders, right? The ones that embody the attributes and characteristics of leaders like Ted Lasso, that archetype. But what have you seen around time and honoring it, respecting it, or the opposite where they haven't?
That's a good question. A lot of what I follow for parent-wise has been Bobby Formula is a huge advocate in the space. I actually just interviewed their chief operating officer last week, Sarah, and she's fantastic. And Parently, and they're really advocating for parental leave policies at corporate levels and things like that. So I'm a big advocate for affordable childcare, parental leave policies. So those are who I look to see what's going on. And I love the push for that they're putting themselves out there on LinkedIn and saying, hey, companies need to respect this, and there needs to be more room for fathers to take off, and there needs to be more of, while there's only 12 weeks that are required for mothers, it takes a long time for, women to recover from these things. And, you have to you find childcare, and, there's a bond there. There's so much that goes into that, and the support coming from corporate, it keeps people there longer.
That's right. Well, I appreciate those examples. We're a Bobby's household as well. And Bobby. Now you're inspiring me to look up how they're really moving the needle or like pushing the pace on.
Bobby for Change is their nonprofit that they have associated with it.
Fantastic.
And I'm a Bobby advocate. Use my code.
Shout out.
Shout out to my code. But no, because I was a Bobby Formula user when, I had my son, and it was actually in 2022 when they had a formula shortage, which is what I was interviewing Sarah about. And what they did was they shut down any customer that wasn't a subscription and said, hey, I'm sorry, if you're not already subscribed, we can't like help you right now. We have to concentrate on our customers who have been there right now. And Sarah talked about how it lost revenue for them, but they became dedicated to their current customers. And they said, we will open it back up after this formula shortage, but we need the people who are current Bobby users to be able to have formula. And so I never had any problem getting formula during the formula shortage.
Fascinating.
It was really cool.
That's such a customer-centric approach. And I imagine that started with leadership. And that sounds like a really bold leadership action.
Yes.
And I talk often about the ABCs of leadership. We don't need to overcomplicate this. It's authentic leaders, it's bold leaders, and it's curious leaders.
Love that.
And those ABCs are the ABCs of charismatic or RIS-inspired leadership. So I need to go back and listen to that episode by Sarah.
Yes, it's going to be out here in a couple weeks. But yeah, there's a really cool thing that they're also doing is they brought all of their manufacturing in-house finally. They've been trying to do this for years. And it cut their costs down. So what did they do? They cut the cost of Bobby Formula down.
I saw this. And my wife, that's when she went and became a subscriber. She was like, I want to lock in my rate.
100%. So you lock in your rate. And so while at the time they lost retail subscribers, and the most interesting thing is once you hit a year with your child, you're no longer a Bobby Formula user because, you know, they move off of formula. So it wasn't like they were like, we're going to play the long game. They're going to be customers for life.
Totally.
So that was really interesting. But then you've got me who's advocating for Bobby. You know, I talk about it a lot to my friends, family on my podcast, you know, and if I have another child, will be Bobby.
You'll boomerang back.
It's absolutely. And it's like they took that chance of knowing that they were kind of cutting out, like they had just gone into Target and everything, but were customer loyal. And that means so much as, you know, as parents, you know, we're already in a stressful time, you know.
Amen.
At the time of the formula shortage, Declan was 4 months old. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I still don't know what I'm doing.
Breach.
But yeah, I'm like, and I'll be saying that for the next 18 years. However, it made it so much easier to know that, you know, while there was a big shortage going on and people were going, okay, what am I supposed to do about feeding my baby? I didn't have to worry about that.
That's right. Yeah. Great case study.
Yep.
Business schools, I hope you're listening.
Yeah, 100%. I was like, that's why I had to have her on the podcast. I was like begging them. I was like, you got to come on and talk to me because like, and we ended up both tearing up on the phone. She's a mother. She remembers all that. And she's like, I love hearing from someone who was one of our customers. I was like, I love hearing the other side.
Totally.
It was beautiful. So you mentioned a couple minutes ago, Riz, and I hear you say this a lot. So Riz leadership, tell me more about how you came with this and how you're sounding like a Gen Zer.
Trying to, I mean, let's build bridges, right? Like generational
absolutely.
workforce. I don't see Riz as just this verb to sex up or find a romantic partner, right? Like when I first heard Riz, I'm like, do they mean flirt? Is that what they mean? And as
Me Googling what the kids are saying, the youths are saying.
That's right. That's right. And it's not even an Urban Dictionary term because it was Oxford Languages Word of the Year in 2023. But what's fascinating about it is it can be used as both a noun to describe someone and a verb in action. Okay. And so I'm really doubling down on that verb because I find that leadership is action oriented. And if we think of Riz as a way to connect with others, then it's a great catalyst to actually understand, okay, Gen Z, what do you all want, right? Like millennials, what do you want? It's changed. I don't want a ping pong table at the office. I want the flexible schedule to pick up my child from daycare at 3, 4.
How about a pizza party?
That's right. Yeah. The old pizza party. Yeah.
We can't give you parental leave, but we'll give you a pizza party.
That's right. Bagels on Friday. Come on in. So at the end of the day, I believe I heard a lot of phrases in my career and leaders above me, they'd be like, the cream rises to the top. And what they mean by that is if you work hard and take care of your shit, then we trust you, and employees want to be trusted. And so I find that Riz-inspired leadership is a great way to get to know people on a human level and be like, what's going on in your world? Like, how are you really? And sticking around for the answer.
Yeah.
Riz is just a fun word to say too, because there's not many. I've looked into the etymology, and like influenza, we say flu, it's the middle of the word, or refrigerator, like fridge is in the middle. So for them to take charismatic, for those who may have not caught it, it's very rare for like the middle of a word to become more than slang, but just commonplace. Like I'm going to go to the fridge, or they have Riz.
I knew it came from charisma, but I didn't put that together, that it was like that. Because like I always think of like bourgeoisie became like, oh, you're bougie.
Yes.
Things like that. It's interesting. I like that. And I haven't seen anyone leaning into it except for you. And I think that's a really unique space to be at. So yeah, kudos.
Well, and let me go further about that space, because Riz, for a long time growing up, Nikki, truthfully, I thought it was a personality trait. I'm like, oh, if the word existed back then, I would have been like, they got the Riz, like they were born with it, you know? And there's so many ad campaigns I think about growing up being a child of television and pop culture, like Maybelline, maybe she's born with it, right? Like all these slogans or taglines, but really Riz is a skill. And oftentimes I refer to it as a social skill because I think it can help anyone in personal interactions. But again, let's take it a step further. Let's not overlook that this is actually a vital professional skill, because if business is built on relationships, then like Riz is a great way to build relationships.
So that being said, do you think leadership is a natural ability that people have, or do you think it's a skill, or somewhere in between?
Valid question. The long-winded answer is probably somewhere in between. I do think some people are born with a personality subset or traits that are better positioned. Or let me rephrase that. I do think some people are born with personalities that are more well suited for the ability to connect. But at the same time, this is a mindfulness practice, and it requires practice, and it requires refinement. And so as we are so distracted, I think the average attention span now is down to like 4 seconds, and it used to be 11 seconds like 20 years ago. Somebody needs to fact check me, right? It's like, how do we engage people, but know that it's not just about us, but it's about listening to them? And I use tennis as my analogy. If you want to keep a conversation going or become a better conversationalist, you have to hit the tennis ball back and forth across the net. Sometimes you might hit it in the net, start over, try again, but get to know one another and really fixate on the other person.
I love that. It's not making it so much about you. It's about them, and then it comes back to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to dive into Brand Me now.
Let's do it.
All right. So we're both a part of Brand Me, which is something that we are launching here pretty soon, and I'm very excited about it. What is it about Brand Me that for you said, I have to be a part of this?
Yeah. A couple answers for me. First and foremost, the people. I'm so, yes, I know, right? Yeah. Give people their flowers now, right? I always say admire in public. It's a group of people who are just powerhouses, and I love that energy. I find it to be infectious. But to contextualize that for our listeners, we're not here to just be like, look at us and our brands. We want to help you.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to that comfort zone I talked about earlier of me not wanting to step out of my New York bubble and move over to Europe. That's how I was on social media as well. I'm a millennial of like the Facebook generation. My sister invited me when she was in college. I think I got on social media when I was 15, and it's evolved so much.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Like Twitter came out when I was in college. When I graduated, Instagram was this hot new thing. I think about all of the platforms. I'm not on TikTok, although my wife loves it. And
I love TikTok.
You love it too?
I lurk. I'm not posting.
Sure.
Yeah, that is for my entertainment purposes and my doom scrolling.
Well, your algorithm must be fun to doom scroll on.
So fun.
And I find that there's so much knowledge out there, which is a beautiful thing in this creator economy. And if we could help somebody be more authentically themselves, better connect with others, take the bold action of putting their thought leadership out there or their personality out there, then it's going to require a lot of curiosity. Again, I'm integrating my ABCs, and we are creating space for people to get curious, learn tools, and then go out and use them.
Yeah. I know for me, a big reason I joined is a lot of what you talked about, but a lot of people's expertise holds them back because they think about things that they know as normal. For me, it's marketing, where I look at campaigns and I'm like, oh yeah, that's simple. Of course you do X, Y, Z. For personal branding, because we all do it, I'm like, well, of course you just do this. a lot of people don't know those things. And your expertise ends up holding you back from posting that thought leadership because you think, well, everyone knows this, but actually they don't. It's you living in this space where it's normal to you and easy for you, but not so much for other people. And I discovered that when I was building out my brand, people are coming to me and going, I don't know where to start. Or I'm looking at your profile, like, how do I build mine? And I'm like, well, of course, just, change your headline, do this. And they're like, this knowledge blows their minds. And to me, I'm like, it's second nature. And I have to remember that, like, a lot of the things that we live and breathe every day in our personal brand, in our expertise, like for you, leadership and coaching and things like that, for me, marketing, doesn't come as natural to other people. And we have that knowledge to share. And people can share their own knowledge about the things they are being held back in their expertise.
That's right.
Like,
preach.
I can't go and work, a CFO job and just start like building out finances. That's not my expertise. But people in that space can go share that knowledge with people like me, where they're like, hey, building out a budget is actually easy. Just do X, Y, Z. And I would be like, oh my God, where has this been all my life?
Totally. And there's other aspects too of my own humanity, my story, that when you say all of that, I think of things that do come naturally to me, and I sometimes underestimate. For example, one of them is networking, but a lot of that is because if I'm putting myself in a unfamiliar, because I'll be honest with listeners, it's not that I find that uncomfortable, but it's unfamiliar, then I know that I'm going to show up with my personal philosophy of being confident, like, hey, I'm self-assured, I'm here, and I'm going to be kind because I'm interested in meeting people. And that's my North Star. And so helping leaders become a more confident version of themselves and more kind version of themselves naturally creates a more charismatic aura, and they're less fixated of what do they think of me, how am I being perceived, and they can focus on them. And it's about others. There's a lot of merit to what you're saying about don't underestimate your talents, listeners, whatever they may be, or even your interests, your strengths, because you may think that other people excel in those areas when in reality, they want to hear from you. And even if they think they're good at it, maybe they want to be great. Can you help them get from good to great?
So many people will be like, well, I just don't have your expertise and I don't have your resume. And I'm like, you have a story to tell.
Amen.
Yep.
Full stop.
Everyone does. Tell it, and tell it in your own way. You don't have to be me. Take what I'm doing and, get inspiration for it, but don't try to be me, because no one can be me. No one can be you. Be yourself. Be you.
That's right.
Brand me.
Yeah. And also the power of one, like we're all one of one. And I think stories have the power to change the world. Some of the best sellers I was ever around were phenomenal storytellers. And I'm not even that good of a storyteller because I can go on a tangent. But if you can just tell a story that's compelling enough and work with others who can supplement it and collaborate with you and amplify certain parts, that's what I feel like we've all done with our backgrounds and expertise. And we're coming together to create this unified brand, me meaning you, you have agency to tell your story. And so my hope, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, is that people will walk away from our event and feel really empowered, Nikki.
That's what I hope. And I really like the people that are in the room, like how you said, we are all very, we leave our egos at the door. We are very much here to help other people build their own brands, and we're excited about it. We're excited to work with people. We're excited to meet everyone. I want to hear everyone's story.
Amen. Me too. Yeah. Effort over ego. The people that are going to make the time and financial investment, it's because they're ready to rock. And they may not have all the answers, and they might be a little scared, a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. But they're willing to take that first step and put in the effort. And that requires leaving your ego at the door.
It does. So, perfect way to amplify your voices and stay ahead out of a crowded digital space. What's your take on why personal branding is so important?
Well, the reason I am pausing is just because the market is so crowded.
It is.
Online is a busy, frenetic place. And
lots of noise.
There's lots of noise. And I feel like people think they should post or they need to post, or maybe there's this etiquette. Even I hear from parents like, I don't know where I stand on posting my child, but a friend posted my child in a picture and I feel like I should repost it because that's the nice thing to do. It's like, really? Where is that written? Did we sign a contract? You have to? And there's this fear of, oh, well, what are they going to think if I don't reshare it or if I don't like it or comment on it. And I just want to give everybody like the permission to breathe and come back to you. Like, what do you feel empowered to say? And so that's a long-winded way of getting at, I think that everybody has a personal brand, whether they've cultivated it, whether they've crafted it, taken time to let it grow or evolve. And there's merit to that. Like they whoever it is they want to be, they can be. It's a becoming process, not a you've arrived at.
Right.
And so I think that the sooner you can invest in that becoming journey, the more self-aware you'll be and the more aligned you will be online and in your real life. Because being online can take its toll. Like we all know it's draining. So if you're going to show up online, then we want to show up as quote unquote the best version of ourselves. And my hope, at least whenever I'm checking my energy, is that it's energy giving, because I feel like I'm there to serve or help or inspire or motivate or whatever the intention is, encourage. And that's energy giving to me. And it's in alignment with my personal brand.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't tell your story and guide that message, someone else will tell it for you.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So people hear Brand Me and think it might be just another branding course or not really know what it is in general, but it's so much more than that. Can you break down what makes this community different and what people can expect when they come to our workshops, see our courses, or just see us on Brand Me in general?
Sure. You said it right there, community. I think that's the power of what we're bringing together. We all come from different fields and interest areas. We aren't going to give you a step 1 through 10. Also, 10 steps is a lot of steps, you feel me? But we will give you insights. We will give you, that's backed by data, and give you tools and resources. And then you get to make it your own. Like you said, Nikki, it's you get to tell your story. And I think that that's the coolest part. We're not going to craft a perfect persona for you and then share it on your behalf. Absolutely not. Like this is
I can't tell your story for you.
That's right. And I don't want to. Like even if you didn't want to write me a check, I'd be like, nah, I'm good. Like that's not my zone of genius. And so us coming together to create let's call it a personalized toolkit for people to figure out their own zone of genius and how they want to show up online and authentically, I think will be a gift in and of itself.
I agree. So we're in this era where AI, digital noise, and social media algorithms, you can't come on a podcast and not talk about AI.
Sure.
That are making it harder for people to be heard, as you said, a lot of noise online. So how does Brand Me help professionals cut through that noise and build something that's truly authentic?
I'm going to go really off piste here and be vulnerable. I've used the AI generator tools to like come up with social posts. And I've gone as far to even like post them, not just draft them. But what I find is, and it's not about the engagement or algorithm. What I find is that often those posts aren't getting the type of human connection I'm looking for by putting it out there in the first place. And so whether you want to use that as a jumping off point, a point of origin to draft something and then customize it, tailor it, make it your own, or not, and just be like, I'm going to go old school and figure this out on my own, or see what others are doing and just lift and shift and make it authentic to you. I think we're going to provide a lot of insight into what's worked for us, where trends are headed, and everybody has a different why. Some people may want to chase an algorithm. Some people might want to cultivate new connections online. Some people might just want to live in comments, and like that gives them a lot of energy to going back and forth and sharing perspectives, or even, dare I say, debating right in the comments. But I think that by unpacking all of that, people will have a better understanding of this digital world we're living in. Talk digital to me. And how to navigate it in a way that's staying true to yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I am a big proponent of AI. I think that it's a great tool if it's used correctly. So I see a lot of these posts that are like, we can tell you're using AI and things like that, not towards me, but just in general, M dashes and like, oh, you use this kind of phrase, it's AI. That's going to get harder and harder to tell over time. And where do you think it learned how to do M dashes and those kind of writings? I've been a journalist for a decade. I've been using M dashes since I came out of the journalism womb. Like, it is just how we write. And AI is learning from us. And so, I use AI as a tool to perfect my posts and things. I'll say, hey, rewrite this sentence in a couple different ways. And I'm like, oh, I like where it's going. And then I rewrite that even from that. So I construct my posts with the help of AI. But I've been a writer for a decade, so a lot of it is my own tone of voice, but then I just have like a virtual assistant that's helping me.
There it is. And I love that you're anchoring on that word tool. It's not a crutch. It's not like, what would happen if I didn't have it? It's actually your tone of voice, your creativity, and it's helping refine it. Yeah. I got to be honest, Nikki, I don't know what an M-dash is. So see, this is why I stand to gain things by
just
being
a long line in a
by being part of the brand me community. Can you bottom line for our listeners what an M-dash is?
Yes, it is basically a separation in a sentence. It's just a long line. You'll see them a lot. Now you won't be able to unsee it on LinkedIn because it's a long line that separates a sentence that could be used as a pause. So I'm like now off the top of my head, I can't think of a sentence, but you'll see them on LinkedIn now. But yeah, AI uses a lot of them. It's just pulling from these things. And actually, when I trained my ChatGPT when I first got it, I uploaded every article I've ever done from Forbes and Entrepreneur and Huffington Post to learn what I speak like. Before AI was even in existence and I was writing articles, and I said, I need you to learn my tone of voice so that when I ask you to rewrite a sentence, it's in that. And now that's Nikki GPT.
Brilliant. Yeah, your virtual assistant.
My virtual assistant. I call her Debbie.
Okay, Debbie.
Yep. Deborah when she's not doing what I tell her.
When she's out of line?
Yeah, I'm like, Deborah, that is not what I asked of you. And she's like, I apologize.
That might be her today. It's a Monday. She's like, it's Nikki, it's President's Day. Okay, Deborah, well, we're going to pick this up on Tuesday.
I'm like, good job, Debbie. But sometimes Deborah just can't.
Love that. Okay, I've got another question because I saw recently you had a post on LinkedIn that had a lot of engagement for our millennial cohort and us being attacked about our emojis. Yes. Where do emojis stand in the cultural zeitgeist of, let's say, like people who have Riz online? Are people who have Riz online, are Riz leaders using emojis or not?
That's a good question because some of those posts that are attacking people for using AI are like, I can tell because you're using emojis or you used arrows, all this stuff. I like to use emojis. That's not my AI bot, talking to me. I like the sparkle emoji to give a little riz to my posts. I use arrows to make points. And yes, I use the laughing, crying emoji because I'm a millennial. I don't care what Gen Z says. But yes, they told us we are out of touch. I summoned all of the millennials from LinkedIn, apparently. That post is hitting 100,000. I posted it yesterday afternoon.
Wow.
Insane. So I summoned all the millennials to be like, no, you can pry my emojis from my dead, cold millennial hands.
That's right. Yeah. LOL. I love the laughing, crying emoji as well. So I would love to know what Gen Z thinks about the slightly shifted one, the 45-degree angle.
I Googled it and I was like, what emojis are Gen Z using? It's the dead emoji or the literal crying one. And I was like, okay. So it's actually fascinating the evolvement, evolvement from emoticons when we used from T9 texting to like the emojis that were ridiculous or the AIM messages. Do you remember the sparkles with the AIM messages? And then you did every other letter. And then, we've got our emojis now and, the different ways that you can express, but I think it adds to your personality. It's the same conversation as people are talking about people who use emojis in their headlines or in their name on LinkedIn. I think it gives people a way to stand out. It's not my personal taste to put an emoji in my name, but I notice people that do it. And like a lot of people that I call my regulars, kind of like if I'm a bartender, I am serving up content. My regulars are in my comments a lot. I notice the ones that I'm like, oh, that's Danny with 2 sparkles. I know that's Danny. And actually, shout out to Danny because he'll be like, oh, my God. He's a regular of mine. I know that there are people that I can scroll down and I see them immediately.
Sure. And if you come to Brand Me, you get to decide for yourself if you are that person, if you want to stand out in that way.
What says that about you, and you develop your personal brand even more over time. I had a post that went viral for the fact that I edit my posts after I post them, and so it says edited beside it.
Yes.
Someone was like, you should have in your bio edited and now I leaned into that. My friend Becca is pretty big on LinkedIn now. She's got over 60,000 followers as of recently, really, really grew. And people started going, oh, you're Becca from LinkedIn. And so she leaned into that. So now her brand name is Becca from LinkedIn. Jake from State Farm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Milam, the real life Ted Lasso.
100%. Yeah.
Lean into what feels authentic and true to you.
Yeah, and you don't have to come out of the gate with that. I didn't come out being like Nikki edited.
That's it.
But it makes sense. I'm a journalist turned marketer. You know, I made the joke of the fact that like I cannot see a post that has a grammar mistake or a spelling mistake until after I hit post. So it's going to be edited every time.
Sure.
My comments edited. And people will point out, they'll go, I love that I scrolled up, saw this was edited, and it's just very on brand. Same with Becca, like Becca from LinkedIn. They're like, oh yeah, you're Becca from LinkedIn. She's like, yeah, it says it right in my cover photo, Becca from LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
Yep. It comes with time.
Totally.
You learn what it is. All right. So let's move on to leadership and influence. So your upcoming book, congratulations.
Thank
The
you.
Charisma Craft is all about Riz-inspired leadership. Of course, I love that. Can you give us a sneak peek, and what's one underrated skill people need to develop when they become more charismatic leaders?
Yes. So I've given some sneak peeks on podcasts before, and I was really toying with the idea today. Like, do I want to share a new one? I'm going to tease one.
Okay.
And I've never shared this on a podcast. It's called the shell tactic. And I feel like a lot of what we've focused on is getting out of your comfort zone or getting out of your shell. And we're in the studio recording this podcast. Often I do them virtually. So I use different tactics for staying connected through a screen. But this one is as simple as soften your shoulders whenever you're walking into a room, because a lot of people are really uptight and they don't realize it.
Yeah.
And so that's all I'm going to tease out. You got to read the book to find out what the rest of the shell is,
yes.
the H, the E, and the double L. But I would leave listeners with that. Maybe you're listening to this working out or cooking. Think about how you present whenever you are in your midterm review or annual review. Think about how you present when you're on site with a client, and really like soften their shoulders, roll them back to kind of have this posture of confidence and just like, I belong here. There's no imposter, like I belong. And if you tell yourself that in your head, then your body posture will soften.
I love that. You know, I am someone that tenses up and I grab you'll notice a lot I'm doing this.
Fidget.
Yep. And I'm like, I do that a lot, and to soften, I need a reminder of that. And I think that even saying that, like coming into a room and having that confidence, it's the same as showing up online too.
Yes.
A lot of people are really scared to put themselves out there. What are people going to say about me? Like, you know, all this stuff. I make the joke that if you're not being roasted in a group text somewhere, are you really an influencer? Because I know there are people roasting me. I mean, even my close friends are like, your posts are kind of cringe sometimes, but I love you. And I'm like, yeah, they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's just how that thing is. So you just got to put yourself out there and have the confidence to show up like your authentic self.
Amen. To answer the second part of your question, a leading skill or a skill maybe that gets overlooked that I think anyone, again, these are skills, can develop is active listening. And I like how you used my shell tactic teaser extending to online. Active listening, I think we think of it as just a live IRL thing, right? Like where I'm either playing back to you what you said in a paraphrasing way or a summarizing way, or sometimes even like repeating, oh, you nailed it. You said that word community, right? And just being present. But you can also actively listen online. Like whenever you're commenting on someone's thing, be like, I understand your perspective to be this, or your perspective on blank is refreshing because, and take it a step further and either ask a question back or say, I share a different perspective, or my perspective is tangential and here's how I see it. Because I think that everybody wants to feel like they were heard first before we offer an opinion, an insight. It's that idea of like everybody on this planet wants to be seen, heard, and validated. We're not always going to understand each other. Feelings are crazy and fleeting, but like we can validate people. Oh, I see what you wrote and I would offer this. It's really that power of and.
And to add on to that, you can even have disagreements that work better when you do something like that and you actively listen. Because I think of the fact that I won't respond to people that will immediately jump to, are you serious? That's your opinion, blah, blah, blah. I don't respond to that. I just don't. But when people do disagree with me and they say, I understand your perspective. I like that you said XYZ. However, I disagree because XYZ. I will always engage with those people because I'm like, thank you for understanding this point. And actually, I've actually learned a lot from those people's perspectives.
There it is.
You know, one of the biggest examples was I talked about being able to hire someone. Like, I know if I'm going to hire someone in 5 minutes. Someone was like, as someone who's on the autism scale and neurodivergent, here's where I, disagree with the 5 minutes, and here's how you can check your bias and things.
Wow.
And I was like, that is really interesting. And I asked her a question. I was like, as someone who she was in HR and she's been on the other side, obviously we've all interviewed.
Sure.
I was like, how do you feel about beforehand putting that out there? Like, hey, I just want to let you know that I am on the autism spectrum, blah, 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 blah. We had a full conversation. I was like, thank you for sharing. This makes me a better leader. She took screenshots of our conversation, posted it, and was like, I don't often have these conversations online because people are so willing or like unable to be like, oh, we disagree, let's talk. And she like put that out there, and I got a bunch of followers just being like, oh, you were nice about someone disagreeing. And I was like, yeah, I'm just a human. Like, if you don't approach me like, how dare you? I am very open to that, but I won't respond to people who jump to
Haters,
the trolls. And I'm a block queen, bippity boppity block. Like, I will block immediately.
You heard that. No time for that.
I have no time for that.
Incivility online. Well, I do want to highlight, because the research does tie the level of civility you're talking about, particularly this woman who is neurodivergent and on the autism spectrum is how I understand that she identified. There's so much beauty in that, because she is competent in what it's like to have that lived experience. And yet she's responding to you in a very kind, warm, welcoming way. And that's what the research shows, is that we all have areas of competency that where we derive a sense of confidence from. But it's so important that we're kind and warm, because this is where the human connection piece happens. And this is where you're like, oh my gosh, like, she has so much charisma, even though she may think doesn't have charisma, that she wasn't born with it. But really, actually, she's over here highlighting your work and screenshotting this beautiful moment of shared learning. You're able, to engage with her and learn yourself, because she wasn't a hater or troll like the other people. And that's the power of charisma. I've had to really anchor down on healthy charisma, because I also have had haters and trolls come after me. But it's these types of civil or healthy interactions online that are actually going to make the internet a better place.
Yeah, it makes the community such a beautiful place to be a part of. And I love that your brand is so about being kind, because you are someone that's very kind. I know you personally. And it's something that I always think about, like, what do you want to be known for? Like, I watch a lot of true crime. So what are people going to say about me when they are, did she light up a room? All the true crime stuff. I want to be known as someone that was kind. I have a lot of my personal brand. I was an expert in marketing, but like, if I were to die tomorrow, I don't want to be like, she was really good at marketing.
Nikki, I was just about to say, on your tombstone, so to speak, it's not going to say like Forbes, Huffington Post, all of your incredible accomplishments. And same for me. They're not going to be like, he negotiated an X $1 million deal with this airline in the Middle East. No, it's going to be like, people, it's that age-old quote. Oftentimes people attribute it to Maya Angelou, but it really is beautiful. Her words were so powerful. It's like, people don't remember what you said to them. They remember how you made them feel. And I think that we can create those feelings of connectedness online, and the world would just be a better place.
Absolutely.
So why not?
I love it. So you've worked with companies like Amazon and Google on leadership training. What's a common challenge you see in today's workplace when it comes to leadership and personal branding?
Yes, I've been very fortunate to work with both those organizations, fly to Seattle, see the inner workings of a mega company like Amazon, and Google, work with them during their Global Development Week. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily the same thing, but I find that all employees right now, or leaders, are struggling to feel seen in the workplace. The challenge I see with leadership is that at organizations of that scale, a lot of people who get promoted are really good doers, and they're really competent. And then they don't always receive adequate training to become a people manager.
I see it a lot.
And even those who are given resources, it's not always compulsory training. It's like opt in if you want. And so I say this really as a friendly call to action to anyone who is at a well-resourced organization where you have opportunities to opt in.
Yes.
Is don't see it as I have to, but rather I get to. And that mindset shift is so powerful to become a better version of yourself. the interesting thing about being at Amazon, I'll never forget, was I spoke with a product engineer after one of my workshops. And this product engineer asked me, what if I lead from a place of curiosity, similar to Ted Lasso, not being presumptuous, and it's met with resistance? What if they think I'm being nosy? And I thought that was such
It is interesting.
a really interesting question, and hard to answer, by the way.
Yeah,
and
that would stump me.
Yes, well, I had to use the power of the pause and really think about it, putting myself in both shoes. And I shared a perspective, whether it's right in his mind or wrong. I just said, if that happened to me, I think what I would want to know is, what is the resistance you're sensing? Because if you think I'm being nosy, are you trying to protect something? Is privacy a shared interest of both of ours? Is there a reason I shouldn't know? And just get really curious from a place of humility, right? But I also say sometimes you got to be really bold to make that ask. So I like to blend those words, and you can be humbled. Really ask the bold question and say, my intention is, I'm trying to operate from a place of humility. It's uncomfortable for me to ask this, but I'm looking for more insight to better understand why it's not best place for me to know this at this time. Because I do think sometimes leaders try to protect their people. They're trying to insulate them, but it can be perceived as you're not ready, or I don't trust you. And that neuro-linguistic programming between two parties, really it's a matter of, I want you to know, but in due time. And right now I'm looking out for you, or
transparency.
Yeah. Or I'm going to mentor you, and like, here's really what's at stake, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to need a level of integrity if I'm going to share this with you, because maybe other people on the team aren't aware of it. And also ask them, if you feel other people at your level should know this, then we'll discuss it and we'll be transparent across the group. But I do think that transparency is a value shared across both millennials and Gen Z that I don't see as often, let's say, upheld by boomers or Gen X. Just because there's a different way of working. And I think there's a shift in that way of being.
I've always been very prided on the fact that I'm a very transparent leader. And I choose the right times to be transparent. And that's come with time, because there have been times in my career where I was maybe too transparent. And that's, becoming a better leader. But I think the millennial part of me is I'm just always honest with my, a lot of my Gen Zers that work for me. And I've been told multiple times, like they really respect that. Like I am very honest with them. Hey, this isn't going to happen because of X, Y, Z. This is what's going on because of X, Y, Z. When I was laid off from Forbes, the first person I called was my direct report. And that was 5 minutes before I was on the call with HR. I said, I got a meeting on my calendar. It's for 15 minutes with HR and my manager. I'm being laid off. I don't know how quickly they're going to cut my stuff. I want you to be the first to know. And, she cried because her and I are really close, still are. But I wanted her to hear it from me.
Yeah. I
am her leader. I knew things were going to get difficult pretty quickly. And I called her before I even told my husband.
Yeah. Well, that dovetails into your personal brand of like, for you, it's important to be transparent to the people who rely on you and that are in the trenches, so to speak, with you. And so I really admire that. In my case, I've had similar situations happen, and it's easy to jump to why me, kind of that victim mentality, or this sucks and let's commiserate. And
which you're allowed to do.
Yes. And you have choice. If I really take a step back, this probably isn't personal. Like, who do I want to show up as? Who do I need to be in this moment is really empowering. And so as I've been developing my personal brand, it's a matter of kind shouldn't be misconstrued for nice. Kind means saying a really courageous thing, and kindness should be in service to them, right?
Kindness is not weakness.
That's it. Precisely.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would just empower listeners to think about, like, a lot of these words could just feel like SAT, words that you're studying up for, but really, how do you live into boldness, or how do you live into humility, and why is that important to you? Why is transparency?
I love your humbled. You should get some T-shirts, hats made. I really like that. Yeah. Patent that. I like the humbled, and I like the fact that kindness isn't weakness. With a very big example of how I show up online with the trolls versus people who are kind. Yeah. I am kind to the people who show me kindness and are respectful to me, but I am not afraid to block the people that I just have no time for it. And that is the strength that I have. I'm setting a boundary. You do not get my space.
That's right. That's being kind to yourself.
Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it. I'm being kind to myself. All right. So wrapping things up, one thing we're both passionate about is helping people find their own voice and influence. What's one actionable tip that someone can start doing today to become a more influential leader?
I think one tip I want to leave listeners with is use your voice for good. That could be advocating for your team. That could be advocating for more resources or support for yourself. I think anyone who's on a journey to develop their brand, especially a leadership brand, go to various leadership trainings, like see which one feels resonant or aligned for you. And then there's no point in doing trainings or doing workshops if we don't actually then go and deploy what we learn. Right. So I think that if leadership's been modeled for you but has never really felt like good or right, or you've wondered, what if, can I be a leader? Flip that around. Be like, I can be a leader, but then ask yourself the open-ended question of what kind of leader do I actually want to be?
That's a good question. Or that's a good statement. I like that. What kind of leader do I want to be? I want to be kind. Okay, so, wrapping things up, people that are on the fence about coming to Brand Me Workshop, what's your message to them? Why is now the right time to invest in building a personal brand?
Sure. Why not? Right. And it's 2025. There's creators everywhere. Pick your platform. You've seen a lot of success, let's call it. If I don't know your definition of success, Nikki, but you've seen a lot of engagement on LinkedIn. And there's so much power in that, right? Of helping people. And I like how you called them your
my regulars.
Your regulars, yeah. And really,
I'm a LinkedIn bartender just serving up content.
And everybody wants to be a regular, a la Cheers or Friends at Central Park, because what underpins that is feeling seen. It's feeling heard, feeling like you're being in community. So I would say give our community a try. We are putting on something absolutely stellar for you guys, and if there's things maybe you don't like or you'd prefer differently, then tell us. Feedback is power. And I think a lot of leaders think of feedback as a personal attack. And the number one thing I would say is think of feedback as data to do better. And that takes time and iteration. And I'm fairly confident this is going to be an epic first showcase, the first of many. So now is the time, now or never.
I love that. So before we wrap, can you let people know where to find you, where to follow your work, and how to stay updated with the book that we are all really excited to learn how to come as our authentic selves?
Thank you. Yes, very simple. You can find me on that world wide web, www.beconfidentandkind.com. Everything is there. I would also ask that you please follow me on LinkedIn as I grow my thought leadership in that space, in that community. It's a great way to get in touch. But my book updates will be shown on my website, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it on LinkedIn as well.
I'm really excited. Can't wait to get that book. I get a signed copy, right?
Heck yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Milam, for being on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.